All right. Welcome everyone this morning. This is the BroDiallo broadcast coming at you live and direct straight out of the city of Chirac, state of Illinois in the United States of America, in the hyper over ravaged burning planet Earth in the misnamed Milky Way galaxy. Very happy to have you with me on this September 18th. Like I'm a week behind y'all. September 18th in the year of your Lord 2023. Of course, I'm, as always, every morning, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time here at the Q4 Studios, Q4 Radio, QUE, the number 4.org. But you probably already know that because you listen to me on Q4. But they want me to say it. There used to be a note here telling me what to say. But the note is down. I guess I've been here a long time. God, how long we been here at Q4? Raging Against the Machine. Almost 7 long, hard yawns. God damn. Shout out to the Q4 radio community and staff. Anyway, very happy to be here with you. Everybody see, I tried to play something peaceful this morning. I played Trop Call Quest, Go Ahead in the Rain, and After Hours. 2 songs that I came up on, 2 of my favorite songs of my early youth, my bohemian era. But, and I wanted to do that to kind of calm my spirit, as Dick Gregory would advise us to do. Calm my spirit. Because everybody on me, man. People just, as my older brother say, people just be hating on me, man. Everybody say, I don't get to the topic. And how dare they? How dare they? And if people wasn't complaining about me getting to the topic, I'd be on the topic right now, because I wouldn't be talking about people complaining about me not being on topic. See how that works? Anyway, I'm just going to start because I'm sick of talking about this particular topic. This is like, I've talked about it last 3 broadcasts, BroDiallo broadcast. I talked about it a little bit on the Earn Your Liberation show with Geechee and Jared Ball. And now here he is. We're going to wrap this up. The conclusion you've all been waiting for. Now, I wanted to start off talking about Cocaine Bear, which I watched over the weekend, but I'm not going to talk about that because y'all don't want to hear about it. Y'all just want to hear the topics. See, y'all Western mindset, y'all Eurocentric mindset. It's funny to me how people, when they don't, black folks, I have to tell you, then I'm going to go into the topic. Calling something Eurocentric, calling something white, calling something Western does not automatically invalidate it. I'm sorry. And when you say that, it's almost like you're out of arguments. Your position can't be held. The whatever type of wall you've erected around your position or your idea or your assertion is crumbling if you have to retort, well, that's white. That's white science. That's Eurocentric. Now, if something is Eurocentric, you're fully justified in calling it out. But that is not enough to say, well, then I win. Then my position is stronger because what you're saying is Eurocentric or your position. Because 9 times out of 10, when people use that, they're wrong as fuck. And how do you know? Here's just the thing. 9 things out of 10 things within Western culture, Western society, Western science is some shit they stole from somebody else. So most of the shit that were been compiled to make up Western culture. If it ain't modern day and Americans stealing shit from black ghettos, it's ancient Greeks and Romans stealing shit from North Africa. So I'm just saying, if you can justifiably and reasonably conclude that something is Western, white, Eurocentric, that's fine. But you have to add on to that. I'm saying I just, so many people just say, oh, that's Eurocentric. But that's one thing. But I wanted to talk about Cocaine Bear. Not going to talk about it. Y'all don't want to hear me talk about Cocaine Bear, because that's not today's topic. Today's topic is neither the ballot nor the bullet. Black political limbo. So that's what we're going to talk about. Not going to talk about Cocaine Bear. I was going to talk a little bit about ball chasing. Some discussions I had about ball chasing during the week, about football and Deion Sanders and specifically, about another ball chaser that's suspected of murdering his own mother, and he's on the loose. $40 million slave, but I'm not going to go into none of that. So I'm just going to get right to the topic. There's a lot of things, you know. I'm a very curious person. This world is wondrous to me. I'm old as dirt. I'm creeping up on 5 decades on this planet, and I'm still in amazement by the things I encounter. But y'all don't care about none of that. My wonderment, my curiosity. Y'all just want to stay on topic. So you like to hear it? Here it go. We've been discussing Black radical politics. I've been politically aware I've been politically aware since I was like 8 years old or even younger. The first election cycle that I've ever paid attention to in the United States was Ronald Reagan versus Jimmy Carter. Now, I've told this on the air before when they were talking about during the 1980 presidential race, and they were showing Ronald Reagan, because Ronald Reagan, racist piece of shit, Ronald Reagan, versus humanitarian piece of shit, Jimmy Carter. But anyway, they were showing that Reagan, because at that time, Reagan would have been the oldest president elected to office. So people were always worried about his cognition and his fitness. So they showed him out jogging with Secret Service, and they would show him out doing his daily old man dumbbell workouts and shit. And so then they were like, oh shit, you know, what's his name? Jimmy Carter's people were like, man, Reagan's out here looking fit and strong. So then they wanted to, this old peanut farmer, Jimmy Carter, very soft-spoken man, they wanted to make him look tough. So they show him out, you know, like 2 days later, he's on the news running with his Secret Service staff running alongside him. And, you know, these dudes are both, for, you know, by and large, pretty old dudes at the time. They were old in the 80s. And you got these young, strapping Secret Service men, like, trying to keep pace. Like, you know, one of my favorite things to do is go visit with my great aunt and talk and debate and spend time with my great aunt. But one of my least favorite things to do with my great aunt is to walk with her. When I go places with my great aunt, I like to pick her up at her doorstep and drop her off at her doorstep because she walks slow. She walks very slow. And she's been on me since I was a child. She's like, you got them long, skinny legs, and there you go. You just take off down the street. And she's old school. You know, a gentleman is supposed to, you know, walk with and keep pace with the lady. And she walks at very slow pace, and I have to keep pace with her. Everything happens at my aunt's pace. When I'm with my great aunt, everything happens at her pace. And I'm, you know, good Midwestern boy. That's how we do. I don't complain to her. That's why I got to come on the air to vent to y'all, because I would never say this to her, but it's not my favorite thing to go on walks with her. Everything else, talking, eating, spending time with her is wonderful. But anyway, so you got these old ass presidents and these Secret Service men, you know, literally trying to learn how, because these are dudes that are trained to like kill malnourished peasants, you know, ex-special forces type dudes who trained all their lives to murder, you know, malnourished peasants in the third world. And now here trying to pretend like this president is running so hardcore that they can't keep up. This old decrepit motherfuckers going so fast they just barely can keep up. It was weird, but I'm like, man, this is politics. I was a little kid, man. I was sitting on the floor in front of the coffee table, in front of one of them floor mounted wood panel built-in speaker and turntable on top, one of them old ass, as Tony Baker calls, one of them old ass big booty TVs. And I said to my mom, Mama, what difference does it make how You know, they're not training for the Olympics. What difference does it make which president runs the furthest on a daily basis? They weren't talking about any policy way back then. And I know nowadays we like to think politics are stupid and absurd, and we have this delusion, this fallacy that things were just so much better or at least more sophisticated back in the day, and we've lost our way. But politics in the United States have always been stupid. You know, Teddy Roosevelt had an assassination attempt. Somebody shot at him on the podium and he got hit. And so he got up with the bullet hole, with the bullet lodged in his ribs, and continued his speech for the Bull Moose parties. And he went around with this bloody shirt showing off what a man he was, as ridiculous as Trump and as racist as Trump. He was a rough rider. That's why I never liked DMX. I don't deny that he could rap good, but I didn't appreciate that dude out here with this Rough Riders. Rough Riders were the Rangers. They were an army faction that went into Cuba and slaughtered black people wholesale. They called themselves the Rough Riders. That was a military regiment that was known for going into the quote unquote jungle, going into uncivilized places and bringing democracy to the Caribbean. And they brought democracy by going up to formerly enslaved, recently emancipated black people and killing men, women, and children wholesale. Those were the Rough Riders. That'd be like our great-great-grandkids, black rappers come out and say, yo, we the KKK. And I don't know if DMX was ignorant of this history or not, of the true Rough Riders, the true history of the Rough Riders. I don't know if he was ignorant of it or not. But based on his raps, which a large segment of his music was about killing black people, he was, I guess I can't even be mad at him because he behaved, at least his music reflected a lot of what the Rough Riders did, targeting black people with violence, with homicidal violence. But I digress. All I'm saying is politics in the United States has always been absurd on the surface, mainly campaigning. Politics in the United States has been, political campaigning has always been goofy as shit. Because the people who finance politics, not the people who run, not the politicians. We pay a lot of attention to the politicians. We pay too little attention to the financiers. But they have no respect for the masses. So they put up these various characters. And even though the politicians and political parties have been absurdist and goofy as hell, cartoonish at times, the policies of the political system of the United States has been very consistent, has been consistent and rigid. The United States has one of the most rigid political systems in the history of modern politics. The U.S. Constitution. Like, nowadays, patriotic Americans and politicians both brag about the U.S. Constitution, how resilient of a document it is. Our Constitution is more than 200 years old. It's the oldest Constitution in the world, the oldest political document that's still standing. That is a testament to how backwards the United States is. You have other countries that upend and toss out their constitution every 10 to 15 years. You know? And do you know what a constitution is? And they've convinced us even that the Constitution is a sacred document. You got black people who were enslaved under the Constitution acting like the Constitution is the sacred document. You got black people trying to tell white people about the Constitution. Oh, my Constitution, the Constitution. And fuck the Constitution. You got literally countries every 5, 10, 15 years, they reevaluate. They have a convention and be like, yeah, let's scrap this whole shit. This shit was written 15 years ago. How we living by shit? I mean, seriously, look at yourself. 15, 20 years. The rules and standards you had for yourself. The goals. The way you governed your personal life. Your relationships. Who you interacted with and how you interacted with them. how you prioritize your how you made your money and how you spent your money, how you preserved yourself. Imagine if you refuse to change that over 20 years, you don't want to change it. No, I mean, some of y'all don't have to imagine. I know that's how some of y'all is living, but I can guarantee you the people around you, if they don't tell you to your face, they talking about you behind your back. So the government, you got laws written by men who enslaved people, who raped people, who genocided people. We got laws governing, the same laws that governed a front-loading musket are the same laws. That's literally the same laws that governed a front-loading musket. One of them old long guns where the gun was 6 feet long, and you had to pour powder in and then you put the ball, the lead ball, and then you pour more gunpowder and you pack that all in as tight as you can, and then you light the flint, and the gun's like sizzling in your hand because you light the flint and pow, and then it takes you 15 minutes to reload. Now they're using those same laws to govern AK-47, and here we are acting like, yeah, it makes sense. My Second Amendment rights. What a fool, y'all. And I hate to diss DMX and then turn around and quote him, but are y'all crazy? Are y'all Negroes crazy? But I can say, yeah, there is a bit of a collective insanity. I'm cold. It's very cold in here. It's cold outside. Somebody asked. It's very cold outside, right? And then I drive here and I get in the studio, and whoever's in charge of such things, the little elves that operate in the background and make sustain this station, they haven't switched from the summer settings to the winter settings. And this is a huge building, and it's a lot of shit going on. It's not just a radio studio. There's like a jujitsu thing here and a gym downstairs and some type of graphic design. And I think there's a law office. So this is a huge corporate complex. Not huge, but it's a warehouse complex, business complex type place. So I don't even know, but all I know is the air is blasting in here. It's relatively cold. It's no longer summer outside. Chicago don't play calendar. So I have to remind my wife. She saw me digging in the closet, getting out my winter coat. And she's like, it's still summer. It's not even fall yet. And I'm like, Chicago don't play calendar. Y'all coons, that's Eurocentric. Being on the Eurocentric Gregorian calendar, white man's calendar. See how that sounds? So yes, it's cold. It's very cold. And so I know I look crazy because some of y'all probably listening to me wearing light colored slacks, short sleeve shirts. Some of y'all in Chicago, but me, it's cold. And the AC is so cold in here is because they got all these equipments. Like under this desk, there's like these big computer boxes. And they got something here, and then they got another big ass Mac computer here, and there's like 3 monitors looking at me. I think if you're looking on the video, you can see 2 of the monitors. And there's a big ass monitor here. Oh, this big ass shit. So they gotta keep all this shit together. So they can't let it get too hot in here, because if they didn't have it on, then it's a mess. It's a hot Eurocentric mess. But anyway, yes, I'm not crazy. I'm a very stable person. Like, I'm not a stable genius like Trump, but I am a stable brother. I'm a stable critical thinker, very stable. So I'm not crazy. I'm not on some, bag lady shit where I'm just wearing layers of clothes at any time of the year. I'm trying to maintain my homeostasis. And now y'all getting me off topic. We talking about black politics. Now y'all getting me off topic. I'm just trying to point out some understandings. As Dr. Bobby E. Wright said, we've been in this country longer than anybody, but we understand it the least. So every election cycle, I got to look at these rich black people come out and try to rally black people around some absurdist entrepreneurial liberation thing. I got to come out and watch all the black reactionary militant talk about don't vote as if throwing political tantrums. I got to listen to the goddamn liberals, the Democratic Party, and the Negro House Negroes of the Democratic Party come and tell us if we don't vote Democrat, the Republicans are going to come and kill us all. Got to listen to the right-wing reactionary black people come and think that they're so forward and they're off the Democratic plantation while they jump right into the Republican slave, the halls of the Republicans. So there's so much confusion here. There's so much confusion. And I don't even think the people at the top are confused. I think they know what they're doing and they're paid well for what they're doing. And there's always the celebrities compete with each other to be like the main invited on the stage with whatever party that's trending. Puff Daddy with his vote or die back in the day. Ice Cube with his contract with Black America. Goddamn dumbass, anti-black, anti-African ADOS, no check, no vote, all this stupidness. So instead of being grounded, the black masses, instead of us being grounded and clear and focused on our priorities and agendas as far as politics are concerned, we join the madness. We join the fucking circus when we should be spectators. We should be up in the rafters looking at this shit, observing this shit. But no, we get right down in it and fully participate. And we out Pope the Pope. We out Muhammad. We out democracy, the Democrats. You know, we are the true believers. And it's weird that one of our greatest scholars would call black people true believers as an insult. He said, black people, we are the true believers. He said that to black people as an insult because we will grasp and embrace shit other people write and live it harder and go harder in the paint for other people's shit than the people who created the shit do. I say it again as an insult. We are the true believers. If you want to find the most Islamic Muslims, you can't go to the Middle East. You can't go to Arabia. You can't go to Mecca. You got to go to the African continent to find the most hardcore Bible clutching Christians. You can't go to Greece, Rome, the Roman Catholic, the Greco-Orthodox. You can't go to the grand cathedrals in Spain, You can't go to the grand cathedrals in Spain. You can't go to the UK and the Anglican Church to find the people who believe the most in their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. You got to go to the goddamn African continent. Highest, most regular church attendance, most pious Muslims. If you want to find people who believe in capitalism, free market, bootstrap, work hard, and sacrifice, entrepreneurialism will save us all. You don't go to Wall Street for that. You don't go to a corporate boardroom for that. You don't go to Wall Street. You go to Martin Luther King Boulevard. Black people literally write capitalist anthems. I'm a hustler. I'm a hustler. I'm a hustler. I'm not a businessman. I'm a business. Black people are literally out here shaking their ass to capitalist anthems. We are the true believers. I mean, the same people that taught you capitalism, the moment their company fails to meet projections, the moment their company has the least bit of stress, they run to the government. They get on the welfare, shamelessly get on the welfare, shamelessly taking public handouts, and got black people ashamed of food stamps. We are the true believers. Coco want to know. I'll answer this question. Oh, where's the mouse? I'll answer this question. The Bible, it doesn't necessarily qualify as a lie. The Bible is folklore. It's a myth. So the Bible doesn't lie to us, people lie to us. Every culture, and see, this is not every culture creates myth, folklore, fantasies, parables, and they create fantastic stories and fantastic creatures to teach people lessons. So um the book of Coming Forth by Day, the Bhagavad Gita, the old campfire stories, every society and culture has its myths, has its monsters, has its parables. So the Bible is not a lie, it's a collection of fiction. The problem is the people who adhere to the Bible, the people lie. Like Jay-Z said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So men lie, preachers lie, ministers lie, imams lie, rabbis lie, holy books and scriptures, they just are something humans have always engaged in and indulged in. They create myths about their origins. They create fantasies about the greatness or the fall of man. They create parables to teach moralities, to teach lessons. Little Red Riding Hood. Fantasy stories. The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Made up things that sometimes draw from real life. So the liars is not the Bible. If the Bible, like I've studied the Bible, I've taken courses in comparative religion. I've taken formal courses in theology. I read about theology, the good book, The History of Islam in Africa, medieval Christianity, interesting reads. I can engage with religious texts because I know it is mythology, folklore, and fantasy. And I approach it as mythology, folklore, and fantasy. But the motherfuckers who come and say, the Lord spoke to me, lying motherfucker. And you know it too. The Lord spoke to me. Those are the liars. People lie. Like, is Stan Lee a liar? Stan Lee is the man who created the Incredible Hulk, the Amazing Spider-Man. He created the X-Men. He was a fantasy writer. Now, if somebody 2,000 years from now takes Stan Lee's book and says Spider-Man is our Lord and Savior, and I'm going to cut the tongue out of those blasphemous people who worship Batman, that's the liar. So the question is the Bible a lie? No. Is it factual? No. It is fantasy. Is the Bible historical? No. Is it factual? No. Is it literal? No. No to all that shit. Wasn't no creation in 7 days. Wasn't no Garden of Eden. Wasn't no splitting of the Red Sea. Wasn't no scrolls, so no ancient tablets sent down from on high. Wasn't no virgin birth. Wasn't no resurrection. Ain't gonna be no dispensation. Ain't gonna be no rain and fire and brimstone and the flaming chariots. Ain't gonna be no fucking rapture. Ain't gonna be no judgment. Ain't gonna be no afterlife. And all that. But anyway, so blame Coco. She done got us off our square. Back to politics. So here's the thing about politics in the United States. Let's be radical. Let's look at the surface. Black people are subject to this system. We're vulnerable to this system. We have to navigate this system. And as of 7:38 a.m. Central Standard Time, September 18, 2023, we have not overthrown this system as of this moment. Now, by the time I wrap up this radio broadcast and walk off this door and the revolution is in progress, because today's show is called Neither the Ballot Nor the Bullet. If the revolution is in full effect right now, then you can just disregard everything I'm about to say here. But if tomorrow we going to wake up and Biden's still going to be the chief executive, if the Pentagon is still going to be the most highly funded genocidal murder machine, if the territorial integrity, if these various commands are still in place, then Black people, we have to acknowledge reality before you can change reality. You have to acknowledge reality before you can engage reality and make any type of means to direct, change, subvert, enhance, secure reality. So, should Black people be engaged in politics? Yes. Let's just answer the simple questions first. Should Black people be engaged in politics? Absolutely. Why? Because it's not an option. You do not become exempt for something simply because you refuse to engage with it. There's no opting out. So you're going to be embedded within politics. If you're going to be embedded in politics, no matter what, there's no opting out. There's a book about lynching called Without Sanctuary. I like to visit that understanding, that conclusion. There is no sanctuary. There is no sanctuary on planet Earth from capitalism. There is no sanctuary from imperialism. There is no sanctuary from racism. There's nowhere you can go on the planet Earth where these horrendous ideologies and practices do not reach you. You can build some pressurized vessel and get in the ocean and go down to the lowest point, the Marianas Trench, the lowest point of the deepest point of the sea, and there is pollution there. There is garbage there. There are toxic chemicals that they've sent drones down there. You could go to the highest mountain peak, and there is toxic pollutants. There is climate instability. You could get your ass on a rocket and go orbit the stratosphere, and it is full of debris and trash and missiles targeted at you. You can't even go to the moon. They didn't put trash and left garbage on the moon. So retreat is not an option. Now what is an option is that you can go to vantage points. You can return to our mother continent. You can go to Central South America, the Caribbean. You can go to Cuba. There's places you can go to say, hey, this place is a healthier environment for me. Not to escape, but to better suit myself for the struggle. So anyway, we in this shit. So we're going to determine how do we engage? How do we interact? How do we navigate? I like the term navigating the system because when I think of navigation, I think of remaining above. Even though you're in contact, even though it has contact on you, even though you still can be potentially vulnerable, you can still be harmed. But if you conduct yourself the right way, you can stay above the waves. You can avoid being drowned, consumed, obliterated. And you can still maneuver and move through the system. Often I see is one of the most favored or beloved tactics for dealing with this system is denial. It's denial. We really think we could be like, well, I'm a king, I'm a queen. We just couldn't call shit. We can name shit. And we can speak things into existence. There's people out here making money, selling a myth, and teaching other people how you can speak things into existence. You can will things into condition. Like, what did Immortal Technique say? Moving things with your Negro, please. Talking about moving things with your mind. Try moving your minds out the projects with your rhymes. So let's visit a time. Because I say we went from Panther politics to prosperity politics. And I think the politics of the Panthers, even though they were not complete, even though they were not absolute, it was a good start. It was the politics of the Panthers, mainly the Panther 10-point program, acknowledged where we were and gave a springboard for where we wanted to be. So I can respect that. And here we are. And this program was published in 1966. And here we are in 2023. And our politics have regressed. We have more information, more technology. We got more quote unquote conscious people in our community. We more woke than we ever been. And if you look at politics now, the politics of the Black community, and as in general, and the politics of the Black conscious community specifically, our politics have greatly regressed. People talking mad nonsense, unrealistic, baseless nonsense. We got people selling us entrepreneurialism is the way out. People up here saying cut the check and reparations. People telling us vote like your vote or die, and other people saying if you don't vote at all. Where I respect the Panthers because I think they had a radical agenda, they had a radical techniques, but they had also grounded radical analysis, and they had viable responses and viable solutions and achievable goals. And it's not just me that thinks that. J. Edgar Hoover thought it too. The Panthers were deemed one of the greatest threats. And if you read the literature, even though in the mass media, they were like the Panthers are the violent Panthers, the violent Panthers. If you read the documents, they knew the Panthers weren't violent. They even concluded that if the Panthers were able to raise up in arms and begin attacking U.S. infrastructure, they even knew that they even concluded that the masses of people, Black people, would not support it or join them, which is proven to be true. They were right. So the Panthers weren't a threat. Going back to quote the late Dick Gregory, the Panthers weren't a threat because they carried guns. The Panthers were a threat because they fed children. The Panthers were deemed a threat because they fed children. And why? Because Dick said, hungry people don't ask questions. They just kill. But people who are fed, valued, and loved, they start to have not just personal esteem, not just self-esteem, they start to have racial esteem. And that was more of a threat. They started behaving and thinking in a collective communal way as opposed to as an individual. I gives no fuck. I got mine, you get yours. That was the threat. Local solidarity and international Black solidarity. It was the love and concern and the scholarship embedded within the Panther Party that scared the shit out of the government, not the guns. They don't fear our guns. I could get in the car right now, head over into Bolingbrook and buy an AR-15 if I had the money. Right now. I could head over to the other side. Instead of heading west, I could go east, get bump stocks, silencers. Over in Indiana, it's complete open season, but I digress. Government don't give a shit about that. These people thrive on death. These people for centuries have packed boats, have packed ships, have packed airplanes full of their own goddamn kids to send them off to die in foreign soil and don't give a fuck. All that pomp and circumstances, putting flags on the coffin and playing the trumpet and 21 gun salute. They don't give a fuck about these veterans. They don't give a fuck about their kids. They don't care about their own lives. These people, you Rugal. What more can I say? The psychopathic racial personality. Freud told on these people and their death urge. Pathos and eros. So we can't alone simply defeat this system or these psychopaths with the capacity and will to kill them. I mean, they own white men, own white scholars. War is a force that gives them meaning. They'll finance wars above anything and all else. But I digress. Let's examine the Panther politics. How did we come from the Panther 10-point plan and end up at cut the check, end up at entrepreneurialism as the way out? Okay, the Panthers are number one. We want freedom. We want the power to determine the destiny of our Black community. A simple ask. That's that. I mean, really, they were evoking King. They weren't saying anything than Dr. King there. They want the U.S. government to live up to the content of its creed. You know, that's all it means. They want basically what the Constitution had promised them since the ratification of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment that made us full-scale citizens. We want full employment of Black people. Oh, let me read that. It says, we want full employment of our people. Now, today, the average Black conscious person never talks about workers' rights, workers' rebellions, working class uprising, working class consciousness. It's all about business. Everything from Ricky Ross nasty ass wings to slutty vegan. Entrepreneurialism is our salvation. But the Panthers understood every struggle for justice, every uprising that is worth our recognition, every movement, societal scale, global scale movement is a working class movement. There is no such thing as an entrepreneurial revolution or entrepreneurial resistance. In every occasion, in every uprising, in every revolution, in every decolonization struggle, rich people played two roles. They either colluded with the enemy, or they conspire to replace the enemy, not replace the oppression, not replace the exploitation, not replace the industries, the profits. They want to replace the oppressor. They want to maintain the systems and practices of oppression, but they want to be. And we fall for it. We keep falling for that shit too. Baby and Papa Doc Duvalier wanted to kick the white man out of Haiti, only to act like dime store white imperialists themselves. Mugabe, y'all loved Mugabe. Mugabe was a goddamn parasite of Zimbabwe. Mobutu, blackest man coming, the blackest man going. Mobutu Sese Seko. Jomo Kenyatta. So the Black elites either try to replace our oppressors and become oppressors themselves, or they coordinate and consolidate and cooperate with our enemies. And the only way for a wealthy entrepreneur business get racks on racks, the only way for a Black person who reaches that status under colonialism, under slavery, under oppression, the only way for a Black person to not either seek to replace the oppressor or be an asset or an ally of the oppressor is for them to commit class suicide. For them not to just give up their wealth but to abandon their status in the hierarchy. Any revolution, any liberation, any uprising that is just and sustainable must come from the labor class, from the poor, the working class. There has never been a top-down revolution that was about justice. All top-down revolutions. The American Revolution was a top-down revolution where the monarchs and the European Revolution, the Western European Revolution, was a top-down revolution where you had the merchants overthrow the monarchs. You had people at the tip top get overthrown by the people at the top. That is not a revolution that will bring any substantive or positive change for the masses of the people. Bottom up. So even if you are a black person who has the skill or the good fortune to amass wealth, your main goal after you sustain yourself and your family is to redistribute and dissipate that wealth so you don't get that brain rot amongst the people. Full employment. That means the Panthers solidly, and they didn't ask for business loans and business grant, full entrepreneur, full business ownership, this fucking bullshit fantasy. They represented the working class. They advocated from the working class. They came from the working class. They mobilized, organized, and educated the working class. Fuck the rich. And even this time, certain Panthers abandoned that. But certain Panthers, from George Jackson to Fred Hampton, held that shit down. We've deviated from that into our own great. We accomplishing less with more because we haven't understood this. The class consciousness has been purged. We want full employment for our people. We want an end to the robbery by the capitalists of our black community. That's number 3. Anti-capitalist. Now we got capitalists. Now we literally got capitalists, unapologetic capitalists at the forefront of our struggles. When the Panthers advocated literally purging capitalists from our community. And they didn't say white capitalist. They said the capitalist. They didn't say white capitalists need to leave the black community. They said the capitalist had to leave the black community. And now we begging the capitalists to come back. We celebrate. We dancing in the street. We buying tickets to see them gyrate on stage. No class consciousness, no class solidarity. We want housing. Housing. Every progressive, positive struggle has been working class, bottom up, grassroots. We want housing. And of course, I'm doing a quick overview. We want all black men to be exempt from military service. All black men exempt from military service. Now, this isn't as impactful now as it was in 66 because the draft is gone. Now we have what is called a poverty draft. But this was written because black men were being drafted into the military at higher rates and put it on front line, even though we made up a small fraction. Like we made up I think the time between 3 to 6% of the U.S. military of the overall we made up like 6% of the overall population, 13% of the U.S. military, and we were like at times, depending at what point of the war, we were like 30% of the frontline troops. So they were literally using black men as cannon fodder. So I would change that. But anyway, exemption from military service, that was written in defiance of and reaction to the draft. We want an immediate end to the police brutality and murder and the murder of black people. Now, this is a curious thing because I kind of got it bumped heads because I've been hearing a lot about demilitarization. Let me see something. They want an end to militarization. I mean, I'm sorry. I got in trouble because I said that I said that the militarization of the police were not an issue because the Black Panthers were talking about destroying or putting an end to police brutality long before the police quote unquote militarized. The Black Panthers were dealing with cops who carried wooden billy clubs and 38 revolvers. They weren't carrying military weapons. And then it was still a scourge of our community. Like I said, there was just a black man beaten to death. Cops beat this man to death with their bare hands. We had another instance where the cops literally broke a young man's neck and threw him into the back. It's not the weapons, it's the police themselves. Because we can embark on a 3-decade campaign to demilitarize the police, and then we accomplish that. Now the police no longer have, they go back to the brown, because my favorite uncle was a cop. And when he first joined the police force in the 80s, he wore khakis. He wore brown khakis and a light brown shirt. He had this wooden billy club he'd polished, and it was shiny and he had a 38 revolver. And it wasn't even one of those fast load revolvers where the, where the drum, the little drum comes out. It was one of them 1-to-1-to-1. He had a little 38 like my revolver, like the revolver, my favorite little revolver that I had. My very first gun was a 38 revolver because that's the gun I was used to. Y'all had all them TV, video game, Rambo guns. I was like, just give me something simple. All this spring loading and shit, that should jam on you. But anyway, and I saw the evolution of his attire as a little kid. It's my favorite uncle. And when he first joined the police in the 80s, he was a cop for over 30 years. And he go to work in khakis. I mean, if it wasn't for the badge and the funny hat and the gun on his belt, you wouldn't even know he was a cop. You just think he worked in a cubicle somewhere. And this is the Kansas City Police Department. If you know anything about Missouri, if you know anything about cops in Missouri and the right-wing red state Missouri, everybody talk about the South is so racist. The Midwest. But anyway, we know about the Missouri police, the Missouri Highway Parole, the KCPD, the St. Louis PD. We know they in the headlines enough. I ain't got to go into it. But I saw when they moved from the beige khakis to the navy blue to the all black, and now how they started looking more intimidating and this and that. But the reality is that's on surface. To their core, back when cops had nothing but a 38 revolver and a wooden billy club, they were the scourge of the black community. They were the scourge of the black community. So anyway, we got black people going back to the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, talking about police brutality. The problem is not the militarization. It's the very existence. There's no way to have a good police force in a capitalist racist society. Abolish, defund, and abolish. Anyway, so they were on point. You notice they didn't campaign for more black police officers or more black businesses, more black capitalists. Now, the capitalists, we go from the Panther era of calling for purging capitalists from our community, all capitalist community, to begging the capitalists to come lead us, begging LeBron James to come open a shitty school. And it's not even a school, it's a shrine to consumption. But I digress. That we're on number 7. Number 8, we want freedom for all black men held in federal, state, county, and city prisons. Prison abolition. That's just now coming around. People literally screaming prison abolition like it's a new thing. Prison abolition. And this is, again, prior to mass incarceration. In this era, black men had a lower per capita incarceration rate than white men. They want, which is something I call for too, a race offender registry We want all black people, when brought to trial, to be tried in a court by the jury of their peer group. Our people from the black communities, as defined by the Constitution of the United States. White folks are not fit to sit in judgment over black people. There's been too much of a consistent history of predatory prosecution of black people and discriminatory verdicts by white juries. People think I'm crazy when I say that. Unfit. And here we go. We want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace. We don't want private jets, yachts, and scotch formulating the plots. The materialism, the wealth, the get rich, get free so you can get rich. We need our rights so we can get rich, get the money, cut the check. That was not a part of the struggle. Reparations meant a cessation of hostilities, a retreat of imperialism, the just distribution of resources, the opportunity for people to cultivate and develop themselves in freedom and security and safety. Not these fantasies of entrepreneurial grandeur. It was working class, bottom up, for, by, and of the working class people. Anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, anti-repression, anti-police, anti-incarceration. Where are we now? Just really think about popular politics, the popular goals and agendas. How did we go backwards from 1966 to 2023? Just look at the last few election cycles and the shit that no check, no vote, cut the check. Black business. Where in the Black Panther agenda or ideology did they praise black businesses? Praise black entrepreneurship, black investment in the stock. Where? Nowhere. Because he knew that was a dead-end street. That shit, entrepreneurialism, capitalism, Wall Streetism, that shit isn't even working for the masses of white folks. But we going to out-pope the Pope. We going to out-Muhammad. We going to out-capitalism Adam Smith. So, I don't even have to. I've gone over in previous discussions and broadcasts where I talked about what we're doing wrong. So let me say, and then I'm going to propose black political agenda and black political priorities. Things that black people should, when we go to the polls, things that will be on the ballot, things that we have the potential to vote for. Revolution is never on the ballot. Even if I was in power, if I was a head of state, or if I was a part of a governing body, I would not put revolution on the ballot. That would be stupid. That would be suicide. Revolution is never on the ballot. Revolution must come from the people. Even white people, when they wanted revolution, they had to take it to the streets. Even when there were white men in power. And they were like, this power structure and power apparatus, I don't like it for whatever reasons. So they had to literally become outlaws. George Washington had a bounty on his head. So it's not on the ballot. And so if you are engaged, depending on if you are an outlaw, if you are on your Che Guevara, you know, if you are in the trenches, living off grid, engaged in revolutionary acts, however they may be, fine. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the black people trying to navigate this system, trying to organize, educate, radicalize, and subvert the system. I'm not talking to the guerrillas in the trenches. I'm not talking to people engaged in active, open rebellion. I'm talking about people involved in what is called an open conspiracy. I'm in this system. I'm being lawful within the system. I'm navigating the system. But I do oppose and I do seek to subvert the system. Let me tell you what you can do in the ballot box. What's available to you? Number one, a Black political agenda. What should be the priorities when you go to vote? One, above all else, carbon reduction, carbon sequestration, reducing the emission of carbon and having the carbon that has been emitted fixed. Carbon sequestration, whether it's something as simple as planting trees, whatever that looks like, cooling, painting roofs right, carbon reduction, reduce the emission of carbon. The main place you have to do that, it's not enough for you to ride your bike to work or take the train to work. We have to reduce commercial carbon and methane emission. The meat industry, in subsidies to the meat industry. Let the fucking auto industry implode on itself. That can be done through architectural design and layout, changing the zoning laws to allow for more dense communities, walkable communities, reducing or putting barriers to the import of disposable products and goods from all over the world. There are things you can go to vote for in the election cycle that where you can vote to reduce carbon and to advocate for carbon sequestration. You can vote green. On the local level, there are certain politicians. I was just talking to a mayoral candidate that had a very viable green for Charleston, South Carolina, and this sister had a whole green component to her larger platform. That's the number one priority for anybody, regardless of your politics, your ideology, your goals and agenda. Carbon reduction, reducing carbon emissions, and advancing carbon sequestration or carbon capture. And number two, climate resilience in infrastructure and policy. Developing, changing, reinforcing the local environment for inevitable climate disruption. You can vote for that. That shit's on the ballot. These are things that you can actually, if you pay attention to your local politics, if you pay attention to the local, regional, national political platform, if you follow the parties, you get out of the two-party duopoly and look broader at the political spectrum, these are things that can actually be accomplished within the U.S. political system. These are things you can go and vote, advocate for, develop policies for. Climate resilience in infrastructure. They're going to have to prepare from floods, fires, and other disruptions, intense heat, erratic snowfall, crops collapse, and increase in pests and vermins, and more common and recurring diseases, disease migration, diseases that used to be limited to tropical areas will travel to up north, vermin infestation. So climate resilience, ecosystem restoration. Again, this is on the ballot. Preserving ecosystems, forest, waterways, deltas, oceanic ecosystems. There are policies, there are parties, there are politicians. There are certain amendments where land can be preserved. It has happened in the past. Everything that I'm putting out here, there has historical precedent that engaging the political system and being engaged in the political system through advocacy, organizing, and voting can bring about these changes. Because we always talk about things that voting, because I got a whole list of things that voting cannot change, that voting does not affect. You can't vote for this shit. We're going to have to do this shit independent and often against the government. But these things we can actually get out and organize and vote for. Reparations. Even within the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party does have senators and Congress people that support. There's literally not one Republican that supports anywhere in this country. In fact, if you are a member of the Republican Party and you come out in support of reparations, they will expel you from the party. The Republican Party's position is that Black people owe a debt to the United States for bringing us out of the dark continent and for teaching us about Christianity and giving us job skills. And that's why Black people don't even consider the Republicans when we talk about reparations. We always fighting with the Democrats about reparations because it's a non-starter with the Republicans. They laugh in your face. They laugh like, remember when on the Dave Chappelle show, they did that skit where Prince challenged Charlie Murphy to basketball, and it's a meme now and a GIF where Charlie Murphy laughs and slaps his hand and almost passes out from laughing. That's when you go to a Republican, say reparations, that's what they do. But, you have some of the most prominent and even senior members. Cory Booker, just this year, introduced legislation for a commission for the study of reparations proposals for African Americans. And there wasn't one Republican senator that supported it. In fact, the Republicans take reparations to the white community and say, well, you should vote against the Democrats because they support reparations. But nobody says this. People are like, oh, ain't no difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. That's just not evidentially true. To the extent that you want to secure reparations and you think that reparations is something that we need as a people, you're going to have to maneuver and navigate the Democrats. But reparations, there is on the ballot. There are certain regions like in Evanston, they had a reparations bill, but every local, they've got local, citywide, and some statewide reparations programs from the West Coast, but they're all coming from the Democrats. And this, which is as important to me as reparations, which is something we don't entertain a lot. But, a lot of reparations payouts will be sucked up if we don't get what is called a debt jubilee. Debts must be forgiven. As we are paid for past harms, another form that reparations needs to take is a dissolving of debt. Debt jubilee. This is unjust debt that has been heaped upon workers. I can't get into it. It's a bit complex. But what happened was the multinational corporations, in concert with government regulators, basically said, let's stop giving people cost of living increases. Let's suppress the wages of workers. And some smart economists was like, well, if you suppress the wages of workers, they won't be able to buy your products. It's like, oh, yes, they will, because we're going to come up with this thing called credit cards. When I was a kid, a little kid, nobody had a credit card. Only your most bourgeois, uppity, upward striving, nose in the air relatives. In my whole family, and we had a huge family. You go to Kansas City and ask people about the Bowies and the Jeffersons. They're everywhere. You throw a rock at Kansas City, you're going to hit a Bowie, you're going to hit one of my cousins. And out of my family, dozens of people in my family, only like two of them. Two that went off to college, the two weirdos. My uncle that went to teach in communist Russia, back when Russia was still communist. He went over there to teach English to little communists. I think he had a credit card, and I had another aunt who went and got her doctorate, an academic, and those are the only two adults I knew that had credit cards. Nobody had a credit card, but now they're like, listen, you're going to work to create this money. We're going to take the money and not compensate you. And then we're going to lend you your own money through the credit system. So you're buying shit with credit cards going into debt. The debt that has been accumulated is unjust. So we need reparations and a debt jubilee. And there are, again, these are things that have been historically voted for. The only things I'm suggesting that we can engage the political system to get out of the political system are things that there is evidence. There is historical precedence of these things being done or the capabilities of it. I'm not interested in voting for fantasies. So yes, reparations is viable, but we don't approach it properly. You don't get reparations by threatening to disengage. You get reparations by being fully engaged. Look at every group that has gotten reparations in the past. And I know even Jerry Ball jumped on me for comparing reparations campaigns, but there are certain universalities. I don't care if you're talking about revolution, guerrilla warfare, reparations campaigns. There are certain commonalities that transcend the historical, racial, cultural thing. There are certain universality or certain fundamental realities or facts related to these various campaigns. So, a debt jubilee, universal health care. Universal health care, this was written into the New Deal. Universal health care was supposed to be around from the 40s and the 50s. It is understood, there is evidence of it, and there are many politicians running at many levels that advocate for this. Public banking, another thing. Prison abolition, this is another thing that has happened and can happen. There are many like minor approaches to alternatives like the drug court, where instead of when someone commits a crime and that crime, you look at what provoked the crime. And if the crime was not, most crimes are not done based out of evil. Most crimes are property crimes done out of necessity. So you try to meet the person, and whether it's addiction, poverty, lack of education or opportunity or outreach or support, then you give those supports instead of, and there was a whole prison reform after the uprising, the Black guerrilla family, George Jackson, and the Attica Rebellion. There was a whole campaign of prison reform. My father was in prison at that time, and he learned to play classic piano and jazz piano. There were foreign languages. You could get upwards into a PhD program. Another friend of mine, his father was incarcerated for robbing a bank, and he learned to play tennis. And when he got out of prison, he became one of the most sought after tennis coaches in Colorado. He moved to Colorado from Kansas City. But that wasn't because white folks was just better now. I don't understand why we think when white people do good, it's because they have a change of heart. When we see people doing these programs, it's because of the pressures. Even Obama, when he got elected, Obama was like, yeah, you elected me, but now you have to force me to do what you elected me to do. And we didn't. It was like, no, we just gonna love on you. We gonna love you. So he's like, I ain't doing shit. Anyway, there were times in prisons where there were programs, there was adequate health, even when I was in Rikers Island. And a lot of times people would go to jail and come out with their teeth fixed. They come out of jail with things, not saying the jails are good, but there was a reform. There was a prison reform. There was a time, even the only thing left from that era are the titles. Prior to the prison uprising, prison rebellion, and prison reform movement, they were called jails and prisons. And the inmate they were called prison guards and convicts. And they were like, well, we can't call them. We're going to change this. We're going to call them, instead of calling them prisons, we're going to call them correctional institutions and the Department of Corrections, not the Department of Prison. You're not a prison guard. You're a corrections officer. You're not a convict. You're an inmate. That's the only thing that's left are the titles. But back when those titles were changed, there were real programs and things going on. And so that is something we can do up. But the problem is we stopped at reform. Reform is never the end game. It's abolition. Because if the institution that you had to reform still has power, it still has the potential to regress. So we stopped at reform when she would have went all the way to prison abolition, police defunding, felony disenfranchisement. They ended felony disenfranchisement in Florida, and now they're not enforcing the law. So even when you get a reform or something changed, they then you have to push towards enforcement. Demilitarization, U.S. military withdrawal and base decommission. There were even right-wing Republicans who were advocating, from Chalmers Johnson, and I never remember this some bitch's name. I can't ever remember. I think he's such a disgusting individual. I can't. Like every show that I mention him, Patrick Buchanan. Yes, Patrick Buchanan. There are even right-wing Republicans they want to do like I said, a lot of times politicians will do the right thing for the wrong reason. But there are even many racist, nationalist, jingoistic, right-wing Republican politicians that support military withdrawal because they believe the rhetoric that the U.S. military takes democracy around the world. So this is how you play politics. There are white people who believe that the U.S. military goes around the world saving people. Like that stupid ass Freedom movie where that man's going around, that Christian Mormon. The fucking Mormons are going around saving children from child trafficking. And y'all going to watch that movie. You suck a Sound of Freedom bullshit. But I digress. Let me stay on track. But there are white people in the political power and political voting blocks who believe that the U.S. military goes around the world helping people. And they want to stop helping people. They were like, well, all these people are ingrate. We went to bring democracy to Iraq and they kill us. We take democracy and free the women from the burqa in Afghanistan and we kill us. We got our military in Africa and the Africans, they're sending all this money. So there are delusional white people who really believe that the U.S. military is a force for good and they don't want that good. And you can literally get those and put a battery in them crackers back and say, yes, we should close foreign military bases. We should withdraw the U.S. military. We should bring back the aircraft carriers. We should dissolve and disband NATO. We should defund NATO. But y'all don't hear me though. We let politics play us. So yes, demilitarization and military withdrawal and U.S. military base decommission is something that we can accomplish through the political process. At the same time, we coordinate and work to fight against the imperialist forces of the West on a grassroots level. That's a two-pronged attack. We need an end of the unified combatant command. The United States, in its full spectrum dominance, has these commands all over the world. They have AFRICOM, CENTCOM, SpaceCom, NORCOM, SOCOM. All them shits need to be disbanded. The U.S. military needs to be reduced and shrunk to the point where it's for national defense. And that's an argument you can even make for the average redneck right-winger. You could build a coalition. And the people who understand that the U.S. military is overseas for exploitation, and the people who believe the U.S. military is overseas for democracy, to spread democracy, they can come together and say, hey, we agree on bringing the troops home. Bring our boys home. Bring them home. If we play politics right. And I just stopped at 10. Carbon reduction, climate resilience, reparations, debt jubilee, universal health care, prison abolition, felony disenfranchisement, demilitarization. 10 things. Those are just 10 things. I could go on 20, 30, 40. These are things that we could do. Because Malcolm X said, we're entering the time or the ballot or the bullet. Which means Malcolm X said we're either going to be able to engage the political process to speak to our priorities, our values, and our agendas, or we're going to have to take it to the streets and engage in an uprising, an armed rebellion against the state. Neither one of those fucking happened. We did neither one of those. So we're in a state of political limbo where The ballot and the bullet got replaced by the dollar bill. And so now it's all about getting paid and enjoying the spoils of empire. Even black people who claim to be anti-imperialists want reparations so that they can buy all the shit that because if there was true decolonization, you wouldn't be able to buy cheap goods from all over the world. The US dollar wouldn't be the world's holding currency. And y'all complaining about $5 gas. If US empire was dissolved, gas could be triple that. And so if you really are about destroying the US empire, you would already be working within the community to make our, like I said, resiliency, renewable energy, walkable community, locally sourced goods and services and products and food, communalism. But the problem is, if black people don't have that, we depend on the empire as much as white people do, and we striving to elevate within capitalism as much as white people do, and we become allies of the system of genocide and oppression and racism as opposed to enemies. And even when we engage the political system, black Zionists, black capitalists, black Republicans, what the fuck? So we need to establish local, citywide, state, and national voting blocks. We need to construct another black agenda. And we need to say, well, these components of the black agenda can be are related to or tied to the electoral process, so we can put out in every district the voting a ballot, a sample ballot, and say these are the parties, these are the politicians, and these are the policies and amendments that we support. And these are the ones that we oppose. And what do we do? What do I tell black people? Black politics in the United States need to be cold, distant, and calculating. And they need to be about securing resources, reducing harm, and disruption of hostile agendas. That's all we vote for. We're not voting for freedom. We're not voting for liberation. We're not voting for acknowledgement of our motherfucking humanity. Black Lives Matter is not an appeal to white people. Black Lives Matter is a proclamation. And the only way to make Black Lives Matter is to have direct and immediate and harsh consequences to anybody who violates black lives, even if that's another black person. Cold, distant, calculating, secure resources, reduce harm, and disrupt hostile agendas. You don't put your emotions into your enemy's political system. You evaluate it. You see where you can get out of it. You see that that's where I support investment. I don't support capitalist investment. I support investment in U.S. politics. What does investment mean? You put in as little as possible to get out as much as possible. There's no such thing as permanent allies. There's only permanent interest. We define what our interests are. We define what is viable and achievable. And we go about in practical and deliberate manner to secure what is achievable. Once we secure that, we already move on to the next thing. If we fail, then we evaluate that failure. We diagnose where we went wrong. We decide if it's worth to continue to advance, to regroup and advance, or to retreat and go another way. This shit is not fucking that complex. Let me tell you what's never on the ballot. What we will have to do independent and often in against the state. Revolution, liberation from the government. Black power is not on the ballot. We can't vote black power. Black power comes from the black community independently and organically. Our level of consolidation, coordination, our level of racial esteem. It is independent of the Constitution. It is independent of the territory of the United States. Black power, black revolution, black liberation is not limited to the territory of the United States. The government can't give you something it doesn't have. And the government does have control over industry to regulate industry. The government does have power over certain territories where they can preserve. The government does have power over the monetary system where they can give you reparations and debt jubilee. The government does have regulatory authority over the healthcare and the FDA, so they can give you universal healthcare. They do have authority over the policing and military agencies. They don't have authority over black liberation. They can't give it to us because they ain't got it. They don't have black power. They don't have liberation. Now, these are things that you can do before, after, and during voting. Before, after, and during voting. I don't know why y'all act like, I don't vote, and that's not an accomplishment. Anybody that's listing the things they don't do is a reactionary. Tell me what you do. So black revolution, the establishment of black. And here's the thing, here's the trick. If you look at anybody else that's seeking to subvert power, to take power, notice how they engage with the established power at that time. When the white man got to the shores of America, when the white man landed on Plymouth Rock and sat across from the various native nations, he didn't say, I'm going to cut your throat and take your shit. He was like, I'm just a humble trader. I'm just going to build a little fort here, a little homestead. We're going to do trading. It's all good. And the natives were like, boom, this is how we do shit. And he was like, very well. I'll sit, smoke the peace pipe with you, and we'll do this. When they went into Africa, read about first encounters that they wrote or our ancestors wrote. They navigated the established political system, political order, whether it was monarchical, whether it was a council, whether it was a federation. They navigated the assistant order as they worked to establish their own power until their power was built up, independent power was built up into a state where it could challenge or overcome the established power. Revolution is a process, it's not an event. Revolution is a process, it's not an event. So that's it. We don't vote, and we don't negotiate, and we don't compromise on liberation, black power, and revolution, not on the ballot. So when we talk about our liberation, when we talk about black revolution, when we talk about black power, we ain't talking about ballots. We ain't talking about voting. We ain't talking about political party. We don't give a fuck about the U.S. Constitution or what they want. That's for us, among us. But when we're talking about getting affordable insulin, when we're talking about less pollutants in our environment, getting the lead out the paint and the gas, we can talk ballot. When we talk about bike lanes, we want more bike lanes so our children can play in the streets. We want speed bumps so people don't zoom up and down the block. We can talk about that and tell you working on that shit, it does not negate revolution. And often you will find your revolutionaries amongst the people working on those mundane political things, those mundane political campaigns. It is not a contradiction to organize for revolution and to go vote for a policy that favors your community or yourself. They only make it that way. So anybody telling you don't vote until we get our reparations, they're wrong. They're stupid. Anybody telling you people die for us to vote, nobody died for us to vote. People died for human dignity. People died for specific agendas to accomplish and to secure resources. And voting was a tool and a technique and a tactic. And where it is applicable, you use the tool. If we're working on a community garden and I bring a bunch of guns, how the hell am I going to help you with the garden? But if we're confronting a hostile force trying to enter into our community and I bring the rakes and the hoes, I bring a water hose and some seeds, how the fuck am I going to help in that? We employ the proper tools for the job. And why the hell would we surrender? Malcolm X also said it would be the ballot or the bullet. We ended up doing neither the ballot nor the bullet. And then we got a bunch of people pretending like they're doing one or the other. Cosplaying bullet. marching up and down the street with these goddamn guns. And some of them can't even march. They just post on social media with the guns and the RBG. We did ballot nor bullet. Now I'm coming with a new proposal, an update of Malcolm X analysis. We need the ballot and the bullet. Just like the oppressor, when they want to colonize you, yeah, they send the military, but they also send diplomats. They send in the military, they send in the Marines, they send in the missionaries, they send in the diplomats. They even send in artists and cultural ambassadors, rappers and shit. If we're going to be a serious people, if we truly intend to engage in statecraft, in nation building, in securing the ecosystems and fundamentally transforming economic and social and hierarchical relationships in this society, we got to start being adult. We can't be emotional about everything. And I know that sounds weird coming from a brother who gets on this mic and screams and foams at the mouth. But when it comes to constructing our agendas, cold, distant, calculating. Now, the execution, we can yell, we can scream, we can dance, we can twerk. When it comes to the execution, whatever gets us there. But at least our agendas need to be sound, secular, scientific. So I encourage us to not run from politics or throw political tantrums and hold our breath like your child wants a sucker, and I will hold my breath until I get it. That's what I won't vote. That's not a political, not voting is not a political strategy. But anyway, that's it. I'm done talking. I'll probably have to bring it up again because the lunacy that I see coming up amongst black people every election cycle is crazy. Now, somebody said I didn't even talk about the male protector's paradox. The reason I say male protector, the concept, and of course, this is kind of stems from the dialogue that came from the sister said black men don't protect black women. She got hit with a brick, and then the people said she was false and she's a scammer. But whatever it is, this dialogue about male protectors has been going on for decades, generations. Now, I personally think that the male protector concept is a pretty antiquated. I think it is a primitive, antiquated, outdated gender role that has really been hardwired into the man is the protector. Like, where the fuck are we living? Under what conditions are we living? You know, I mean, hunter-gatherer. Once we developed agriculture and pointy sticks, you know, I think the male protector, I mean, that pretty much equalized it. I mean, muscle mass in most major conflicts, muscle mass is not the key determinant in who's going to come out on top. You know, what does Biggie Small says? Instead of a Mac 10, he tried scrapping, text to his back end, asking what the fuck happened when a stupid motherfucker want to try to use Kung Fu instead of the Mac, you know. What did Bushwick Bill say? Lifting weights will make you bigger, but lift me, you'll be a dead ass nigga. You want to squabble because you think you're tougher? Brrr, swallow that, motherfucker. Those are called bullets. They got them in every state. Keep people like you in place. So once we developed agriculture and pointy sticks, the whole caveman shit was obsolete. That was what's called an equalizer. So it's not even the fact that men have muscles that's the problem. It's the aggression. Women have the ability to do as much violence as men do. They have access to the guns and knives, and they have access to the gasoline to burn shit, you know, but they don't. So it's not even that the man is the protector. I think it is the male protector paradox because the men are the main offenders. By and large, I mean, I don't mean like, a little over half. Like 90%, 95, 96% of homicides all committed by men. violent assaults. And on the other side of that, the main targets of most violence, especially, street level violence, is men. How did we get it's just evidence of patriarchy. It's like white people are considered the most civilized when they've been the most savage people, and men are considered the protectors when we are the greatest threat. And not just to women, but to ourselves. Like when you lie on the application and get the job. So I always thought it was weird, or maybe just insincere, or just a mass delusion. But I guess if so many people can believe in God, it's just weird. So I support what the economic freedom fighters, Julius Malema. South Africa has a epidemic of sexual assault and murder of women in the post-Mandela era. And there was a lot of rhetoric about we need to protect women. You see a woman in danger. And he was like, fuck this protect women shit. Like, what do you mean protecting women? You don't protect women by just hopefully some woman can be lucky enough that there is some man around when she's being assaulted. He said, I want to end the culture of abuse of women. You don't protect people, you end the abuse. If there's no abuse, there's nothing. I want to make it so there's nothing that they have to be protected from. And we can do that. There was a time where predatory apex predators, lions and bears and wolves, would hunt humans down. And as humans went about our lives hunting and gathering, there was a serious concern that, hey, there's a danger to humans. So we're saying it's okay to have an environment, a culture, a society that preys upon women, where women are under daily and constant threat of physical, sexual, and even psychological and emotional harm. And we're going to call on random men that if you see something, step in. That is hella inefficient. That's very inefficient. Especially, like I said, if you go look at the stats, if you go look at the crime stats, you go look at the homicide stats, the hospitalization, the shelter, the data collected by shelters, the vast majority of people that suffer, especially women, if we're talking about, because protecting men, that's a whole nother thing. But in this rhetoric around protecting women, nobody seems to look at the facts or the data or the reality on the ground. They just go off of rhetoric. And we respond to the empty rhetoric, baseless rhetoric. A woman is far more likely, even if you're a man who wants to protect women, women are far more likely to experience violence, harm, abuse from people they know, a relative, an intimate partner, or a close friend of the family. Most of these attacks come from people they know and have a relationship with. So even if I roam the streets like fucking Batman, prepare to intervene anytime I see violence. For every time I stop some woman being assaulted by a stranger in the streets, there are literally hundreds of women in quiet, intimate, close, supposedly safe spaces that are suffering abuse. And that's why the men protector, if you really are a man who wants to protect women, you got to start at home. You can't go into the streets. You got to go to Thanksgiving. You got to go to Christmas. You got to go to the next wedding, the christening. You got to go to the barbecue, the family reunion, because that's where the majority of the abusers and the predators are. But y'all don't hear me, though. In fact, we got men like an irritated genie. I have to be careful now. I don't want another cease and desist letter from him. That are out here talking about protection and being tyrants in their own house. Because it's good. If you are an abuser and a predator, the game is good. The game is set up for you. Because we have all the attention is about men creeps jumping out of the bushes. So it's just men get to get this title like any man. I protect black women. I protect and respect my queens. And I could have that whole fucking persona. And every day I go home, I'm abusing my wife. And the system and the culture and the community is set up for me to get away with it. And then when I get caught and exposed, I get to say, oh, the government's coming after me because I fight for you. And sisters, y'all participate in this. I said all the time. You want a capitalist in the streets and a revolutionary in the sheets. You want black men to fully engage this sexist, patriarchal, misogynistic system. You want us to fully go out there and achieve within it and get everything that it has to offer. But you don't want us to get any of the psychological, patriarchal contamination. You don't want us to bring that home. And if I fail within this sick system, if I fail to thrive and achieve it, I'm a broke nigga. You broke ass. When really the most broken men are Jay-Z. The billionaires are broken. Psychologically, madmen. So these pro-capitalist sisters, capitalism needs subordinate classes. Capitalism is built on the exploitation of the subordinate. So if I am a man in a capitalist system and you want me to achieve and embrace and maneuver through this system, then you want the boss going to slap me in the head no, the boss, the owner going to slap the manager going to slap me, and I'm going to come home and slap you. That's how unjust hierarchies always work. Everybody punches down. So you can't say, oh, we want our black men to be humane, and we also want our black men to secure the bag. You can't be humane and anti-human at the same fucking time, or you will fucking literally go insane, and which is what happened. That split personality. So let me tell you really about keeping women safe. You got to keep everybody safe. And how do you keep women safe in a society? There's already the data again is out there. First thing, you have to have an anti-violence culture. Celebrate peace and peacemaker. How do you have a culture where, irritated Genie, somebody asking about irritated Genie. His wife, his long-suffering wife, came out with a whole series of videos not just exposing irritated Genie, but also exposing Mwalamu Baruti as facilitators of abuse and justifiers of abuse. Mwalamu Baruti and his wife. I know we ain't supposed to say names, but hell, I don't know no better. Listen, I was born and raised in Missouri, and Missouri is the show me state. People, you meet a real cat, a St. Louis, Missouri cat, they don't believe nothing you tell them. It's the show me state. You got to show and tell. I got to name names. Anyway, we have to celebrate peace and peacemakers. This is a society that celebrates violence, and men rise to the top of this system and to the top of this society are celebrated by their capacity and will to do violence. All the monuments to violence, all the violent outlets. So you need a society. Human beings are the most socially oriented primates in the world. So you have to reorient the society towards peace, and peacemakers need to become celebrated people in this society. And number two, you have to destroy patriarchy. And I know we don't like this, and the feminists have really contaminated this destroy patriarchy. But the reality is white feminists, mainstream feminists, and most black feminists don't support the destruction of patriarchy. That's just a slogan. What they really want to do is replace patriarchy. They just look at the CEO. Feminism is the CEO of Ford Motor Company. She's a woman, and she's doing all the shit that men do. And patriarchy is just an unjust hierarchy. It's a specific unjust hierarchy We really have to destroy all unjust hierarchies, which patriarchy is one of them. And there's a lot of people who claim they want to overthrow racial hierarchies, economic hierarchies, and they want to leave patriarchy in place because that's their indoctrination. So you have to destroy patriarchy, and people don't even want to acknowledge that patriarchy is real. And the few people that do acknowledge patriarchy is real, they really believe it is either divine from heaven, dictated by a god, or they believe that it's a natural thing in nature that is simply hardwired into DNA. When patriarchy, just like most other hierarchies, are something that we deliberately construct and sustain. And if we stopped, it would go away. And again, this is another thing where I have to say, the main victims, the first and primary victims of patriarchy are men. While there are corpses of men all over this world, men have shorter lifespans, have more stress-related illnesses and chronic diseases. Men tend to drop out of healthy and have an incapacity for healthy relationships and connection. And patriarchy is fucking men up. But patriarchy also causes men to blame immigrants, blame gays and the transgenders, to blame women. So patriarchy destroys men, and patriarchy prevents men from acknowledging the fact that patriarchy is destroying them. So they scapegoat and attack everything except that. So, but let's keep it moving. You need a just distribution of wealth, resources, and opportunities. If you want to keep women safe, you can't just get muscles and a gun and walk up and down the street like Batman. Batman would do more to protect Gotham if he redistributed the wealth, unionized all his, and turned over the means of production to the masses of Gotham. That will make him a true hero. So we find across the board nations that have a more equitable distribution of wealth, resources, and opportunities have less violence towards women. Another thing, education, for specifically prioritizing education for women. And I don't mean schooling and training for jobs. That's another thing. We think training, we don't understand the difference between training and education. And I'm not even going to get into that because time's wrapping up. But look up what true education is. As Bobby E. Wright taught us, education means to bring out. So education isn't just about women getting job and training, girl boss, hashtag girl boss. No. Education is about women being able to fully cultivate themselves. A lot of times, and you talk to women, and I've talked to women with PhDs, women where they are able to not just get information and data, but being able to process that as women. A lot of times women get into places of higher education, and they, by structure, by force, they have to just start mimicking men. Like I knew this sister, she was a brilliant mathematician, and she went into Wall Street, and she got a mentor who was another woman. They gave her a woman who was a mentor. She was working on Wall Street. I met her in New York, and her and this woman would go to these steakhouses and smoke cigars and eat rare, raw, bloody steaks. And she said her female mentor would tell her about being a shark and basically saying, you got to mimic these fucking sick men. We women have to become or mimic sick men in order to thrive in this environment. Eventually, she left the corporate structure because even though she had schooling, even though she had training, she wasn't truly educated. Her true self was not allowed to emerge and thrive. So then she went into teaching and became an educator, and I guess teaching other young black mathematicians to go into that madness. But true education. Another thing, abortion, reproductive rights. But I don't like all this flowery language. I'm pro-choice and no, abortion. Women need the capacity to end pregnancy. Pregnancy, especially multiple pregnancies or unplanned pregnancy or coerced pregnancy, is a big part of not only trapping women in violence and exploitative relationships, it is also a grand preventer of women leaving exploitative and abuse. So if you really want to protect women, allow them to terminate pregnancy on demand without apology. And any universal healthcare program should fully cover reproductive rights. But I don't like saying abortion. I mean, I don't like saying pro-life or reproductive health. Abortion. There's nothing wrong with abortion. Any woman that wants an abortion should be able to get it. And if you really want to protect women and you oppose abortion, you're full of shit. And if you be like, no, I just against abortion, especially if you don't have the capacity to get pregnant and you anti-abortion, you are the fucking problem. You're the dude we're talking about. Even if you don't put your hands on women, you support a structure and infrastructure and policies that oppress women. Secularism. This is another one you don't like. If the society is not wholly secular, then you are not protecting women. You do better than out here again walking up and down the street hoping to be a champion for some strange woman. You do better to make sure that the church and religious institutions do not gain political, social, cultural, or economic power. Secularism protects women. Religiosity, theocracies harm women. The more theocratic influence or power that the church, I don't give a name, the religion, even those Eastern religion, Hinduism and Buddhism, devalue and target and abuse women. So secularism, end shame and repression of sexuality, especially women's sexuality, but sexuality across the board. If you look at the societies that have the highest level of shame and sexual repression and sexual shaming, you will find that those are the societies that have the highest levels of sexual abuse. You go to those societies where women are covered, their heads are covered, their eyes are covered, and in those women, you go to those modest societies and purity culture harms women. And finally, last line of defense, self-defense. Women should be trained in self-defense techniques and strategies. And I don't just mean karate. I mean in terms of spatial awareness, have protocols for for protection. My wife and I have all these little rules. We've been together 20 years. Or where you call and let me know, I let you know where I'm going. And when I'm out of town, there's certain things you do. When you're out of town, there's certain things. So just having a self-defense ideology, a self-defense protocols and culture. And even if you don't know anything, like, what do you mean? And like I said, it ain't just about carting a pistol around. A lot of times, even women that are armed, the gun becomes a weapon against them. The gun people own in this system is more likely to hurt them or their loved ones than some creep in the bushes. And listen, if you think an abortion is killing a baby, you should not have an opinion on abortion because you don't know anything about human anatomy, human physiology, human development, fetal development. You don't know a goddamn thing. So anybody that says that talks about killing babies and abortion is unworthy or is too goddamn ignorant to have an opinion about women's reproduction. So you really need to go sit your ass down if you are on here talking about killing babies. If you calling a fetus, if you calling a zygote a baby, you don't know a goddamn thing about human anatomy. And I hope every time your raggedy ass talking about abortion kills babies, I hope every time you go to Church's Chicken and say, I want to buy a chicken, they throw a raw egg at your face because the egg is a chicken. If a zygote is a baby. Oh, now you want to call it a human process. Again, like I said, go study basic reproductive anatomy and physiology. I don't even think you're worthy to have children, your damn self, if you're that goddamn ignorant. But I digress. This is the BroDiallo Show. Like, share, subscribe. I know y'all want to get to the topic. Now we to the topic, and I couldn't talk about all the side shit I wanted to get into. Politics is nothing more than an attempt to secure and allocate resources within a structure. We should all engage in politics. in a way that speaks to the best interest of our community, our race, and our larger, broader agendas. And get out your emotions. Get out your yeah, get out your emotions. So moving on. This Wednesday, Skip Coon and I will be back with the Rational Radicals, and Fridays we'll be back with the Earn Your Liberation show. And in the future, I'm going to try to open up the phones and open up the comments and all that, and have more audience engagement. I love bickering with people on the internet. But there's some other shit I wanted to get into that I just couldn't get into. But it's all gravy. You know, time ain't on our side, but we got a little time. So since we went out, we came in with Tribe Called Quest. We might as well go out with Tribe Called Quest. And again, like, share, subscribe. If you got more money than time on your hands, it just ain't got the time to like, share, or subscribe. Don't cost you nothing, but it greatly benefits the BroDiallo broadcast and my efforts of creating a Pan-African media propaganda empire. Help me, help me, help me. And you can make a contribution. Thank you to everyone thank you to everyone in the super chats, everyone that helps to sustain. I am listener supported. I am by, for, and of the people. No corporate, no outside sponsorship. Now, don't make me get out on the picket line next to these Ford workers. I have to boycott the people. I have to picket the people. I have to come in each and every one of y'all houses because y'all not compensating me to the degree that I feel that the work I put in. So I'm going to get out and picket the Black community. I'm going to be at everybody listening to me. I'm going to come to your house with my picket sign. If y'all don't step up this support now, pass the basket. I'm digitally passing the basket around and making a humble offer, a humble contribution. Anyway, very, very, very happy to be here and feel very fortunate to be able to engage with the community in this way. And again, we'll see you Wednesday. Please tune in to the Rational Radical Show on Wednesday, Black Power Media. Continue your ongoing support of Q4 and our efforts as well. All right, that's it. On out with Can I Kick It?